Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Beis and we will be learning today Mirz Hashem, Daf Tes Vav Amud Beis. It's going to be a little bit of a short share today, I think, because we already did quite a bit of Tes Vav Amud Beis. We pick up with a new Siman today, Siman Kuf Lamed Gimel, Din Borchu b'Shabbos, the halachas that govern Borchu on Shabbos. Now, we're going to see which Borchu we're talking about. We're not talking about Borchu after Yishtabach. Din Borchu b'Shabbos u'bais if echad. Here we have one sif. Now, we have just finished Siman Kuf Lamed Beis, and we've been going through davening in order. So we went through Psukei Dezimra, we went through the halachas of Yishtabach and Borchu, we went through Berachas Kriyas Shema, we went through Kriyas Shema, we went through Shemona Esrei, we went through Tachnun, we went through Ashrei Lam Natzeach Uval Tzion. Finally, we learned about the Yom, Enkel Elokeinu, Aleinu. Now we're addressing this Borchu. Which Borchu is this? This is the Borchu that many had the minhag to say all the way at the end of davening, after the last Kaddish at the end of davening. And the purpose of this Borchu was really something that we learned about much earlier, back when we were learning, what is it, Siman Samach Tes, I think it is. Is it brought down here? Yeah, Samach Tes. We learned about what we called Parsin al Hashma. We learned about the minhag to address the needs of people who came to shul late. We said it could be somebody came to shul late, and because he came to shul late, he missed Borchu. We don't want him to miss Borchu. Could be he also missed a Kaddish. We don't want that to happen either. And therefore, what we did was we had a chazan who got up and did sort of an abridged part of davening, where he would say Borchu, and then the first bracha of Berachas Kriyas Shema, and etc., etc. We learned about various minhagim, but the simplest manifestation of this minhag was the minhag that all the way at the end of davening they would just say a Borchu, so that in case somebody missed Borchu, they would get Borchu at the end of davening. That's the Borchu that we're talking about over here. And says the Mechaber here in Sef Aleph, B'Shabbos v'Yom Tov ein oimrim Borchu akar Kaddish basra. On Shabbos and on Yom Tov, you don't say that Borchu. Hagah, says the Ramah, afilu b'makom shenagu la'amrei b'mais hakoil, even in locations where they did have the minhag to say that Borchu b'mais hakoil, to day it during the week. And why did they say it? Because it could be that there were certain people who were not in shul when they said Borchu because they came late. The Ramah says that on Shabbos and Yom Tov, there's no reason to say that Borchu. Why? Because on Shabbos and Yom Tov, the assumption is that everybody is going to have arrived in shul before Borchu. Now, one reason for that is that the beginning of davening is much longer on Shabbos and Yom Tov because you have the extended Psukei Dezimra. So where normally you might have, from the beginning of davening from brachas until Yishtabach, you might have 15 minutes. On Shabbos, you might have a half an hour. So that's one reason why people assumedly would be there by Borchu. But then there's another reason as well, and that is that on Shabbos you have a lengthy Kriyas HaTorah, and by every one of the aliyahs you have Borchu. So even if the person didn't make it on time for Borchu, he must have made it there for at least part of Kriyas HaTorah. So Mistama, he heard a Borchu in Kriyas HaTorah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, afilu b'makom recite loymar. What the Ramah wants to say, what he's referring to is, there are places where they had the minhag that the chazan would say a kaddish and a Borchu at the end of davening, shehispalalu kol hatzibur, after the whole tzibur finished davening, because sometimes there are some people who didn't arrive in shul until after Borchu, v'lo shamu Borchu, and they never heard Borchu. He sends us back to Siman Samach Tes again, where we discussed this person al Hashma at length. Shebiyarnu sham hakoil ledina. Ois Cotton Bays, on Shabbos and Yom Tov, we don't need to say this Borchu. da kol button da filu im era le'echad shenisach lava yacha Borchu, because even if it did happen that somebody came late to shul and he came after Borchu, however, the assumption is that he probably did hear at least one Borchu from one aliyah from during Kriyas HaTorah. Okay, now we go to Siman Kuf Lamed Dalet, moving along in the davening. Well, not really moving along in the davening. Really, we're digressing a little bit. We already learned the halachas of Nefilas Hapayim, the halachas of Tachdon, but we did not speak specifically about VHU Rachum. Here we're going to speak about VHU Rachum, Siman Kuf Lamed Dalet, Seder VHU Rachum v'Hagbas HaTorah, the proper Seder for VHU Rachum and Hagba by Kriyas HaTorah, Uboy Beis Seifim, and here we have 2 Seifim. Says the Mechaber, Sif Aleph, well, not the Mechaber, here we have an interesting case where, this recording is not working. Maybe it is. Not sure if this was working or not. Let's see. Okay, here we have an interesting case where we have a siman that begins with the words of the Ramah instead of with the words of the Mechaber. Says the Ramah, Hagah, Noihagid laharbais betachanunim b'sheni ubechamishi. Our minig is to be marbe, to say increased tachanunim, tefillas, b'sheni v'chamishi on Monday and on Thursday. The Omrim, and we say VHU Rachum. We say what we colloquially know as the long Tachdon. We say VHU Rachum. And the Mechaber says, V'Omrim Oisai B'Kol Ram. We say it out loud. V'Im Lo Yamorei Me'umid. And if we don't say it standing, if somebody does not say VHU Rachum standing, Oiver al HaTakana, he is going against the Takana. The takana of VHU Rachum was such that VHU Rachum is intended to be said ba'amida, and since he's going against the takana of a nikra peiritz geder, he's called a peiritz geder, somebody who is breaching a fence. He's breaching the way the takana was set up, that you're supposed to say VHU Rachum standing. To go against that is to make a breach in the fence of the takana, and we know peiritz geder yishachenu nachash. Somebody is peiritz geder, he could be bitten. Yishchenu Nachash, he should be bitten by a snake. We don't like a peiritz geder. So VHU Rachum is intended to be said standing, says the Mechaber. Hagan, the Ramah says, V'chein Nehagin la'arei me'umid. And indeed, the minig is to say it standing. Avol, however, going to the top of Tezayin and Aleph, the Ramah does take issue with something else that the Mechaber said. Avol Oimrim Oisai Balachash. The Mechaber said that we say VHU Rachum out loud. The Ramah says no. The Ramah says Avol Oimrim Oisai Balachash. We say it quietly. And this that we're marbe in saying tefillas on Monday and Thursday is mishum shehem yemei ratzon, because these are days of ratzon. These are days when it's easier to find favor in the eyes of the Rabbeinu Shalom, and our tefillas are more makubal. And because of that, we also had the minig. People had the minig to fast on Monday and Thursday. Okay, we did the whole sif here. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah back on Tesvav on Beis. Mishnah Berurah is cut in Aleph. Noihagin laharbais. Yesh b'kaimai shenoihagin loymar kaidem VHU Rachum shloish esrei midoi sharachimim uvidui. Interestingly enough, despite the fact that we already learned Hilchas Tefilas Hapayim, as far as my memory serves, this is the first that we see of at least a little bit the minig that we know of Nusach Sfarad. Nusach Sfarad by Tachdon, every day they say Vidui and Shloish Esrei Midois. They start with Elikenu v'Elokei v'Seinu, then they say Oshamnu, then they say Kel Chapayim, Hashem Kel Rachav v'Chanun, and they do all that. They say all that before they actually go to Nefilas Hapayim. Over here we have the Chavetz Chaim bringing down that minig only on Monday and Thursday. He brings this down from the Beis Yosef. Ois cotton beis v'Omrim VHU Rachum, and then we say VHU Rachum. Says the Chavetz Chaim, v'tikud amirasa, the takana that led to this takana to say VHU Rachum, haya al yedei ma'aseh nes gadol. It came about through a great nes. Kamuva bekolboi v'nidfas pasidurim. It's the story is brought down in the name of the kolboi, and it is found printed in some sidurim. V'tzarich la'amroi bekavana u'b'mason v'loi b'merutza. And v'hu rachum should be said with kavana, with intent and concentration. U'v'mason, it should be said patiently. We shouldn't be flying through it. V'loi b'merutza, you shouldn't be running. Now, the Chavetz Chaim over here references the kolboi that says that Rachum came about through a great nace. If you look up the kolboi tells over a story. He says that it was, I believe, shortly after the Churban that a boatload, a shipload of Yidden landed on foreign shores. And they came into this country and they said that we are Yehudim, we are Yidden that are escaping the Churban. And the ruler of that area that they landed in, of course, Yidden were famous. They said, you are Yehudim, you are Yidden. Well, said this Moshel, I know the story of Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi, Nebuchadnezzar threw them into a guf shel aroyos. He threw them into the lion pit, and they were saved. If you are Yehudim of the nation of Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi, so you're laying claim to being that type of people, I want to see, are you also capable of being saved from something like that? So the Yidden asked for 3 days to be mispal. They were mispal for 3 days. At the end of the 3 days, the ruler set up, during the 3 days, there was a zaken, there was an elderly person who was not a Talmid Chacham. He was an elderly person who was a Yirei Shamayim, but an Amoritz. He wasn't a Talmid Chacham. And he reported that during those 3 days when the Yidden were being mispal, he had a dream. And in his dream, the reference was made to a pasuk, and the only thing that he remembered from the pasuk was that it said the word ki twice, and it said the word loy 3 times. But he could not remember the pasuk. So the Talmidei Chachamim that were there said that it's a pasuk from Yeshaya, I believe it is. I don't remember the pasuk offhand, but it's a pasuk that speaks about being saved from fire and being saved from water. And the Talmidei Chachamim took that chaloim, that dream, as a remez that the tefillos of the Yidden were accepted in Shamayim and that they would be saved. So after 3 days, the ruler came along and he erected a very large fire. He made a bonfire, and I'm not sure if he, I don't think he took all the Yidden and put them into the fire, but he took, I don't remember correct. I don't remember if it was just this Yid that had the dream or it was 3 Yidden. He put them in the fire. Well, I think it was just the Yid who had the dream. This Zaken, this elderly person who had the dream. They put him in the fire, and when he went into the fire immediately separated into 3 fires, and 3 Zikanim came and entered the fire. And I think the Kolboi says it was Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi, and each one of them said out loud and composed at that time one portion of Vahu Rachum, and they saved this individual from the fire. It's also brought down that they broke up Vahu Rachum into 3. Each one of them said one part of Vahu Rachum, and each section of Vahu Rachum had 18 names of Hashem in it. And those 18 names of Hashem are connected the 18 brachas of Shemona Esrei, and we're going to see where that has a manifestation in halacha as well. But that's the story that the Kolboi brings down. So you see how Vahu Rachum is a tefillah that came to us, like the Chavetz Chaim says, mitoich neis gadol. It came to us through a tremendous neis. You see the chashivus of the tefillah of Vahu Rachum. I know that Reb David Feinstein, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, when people would come to him with various problems, he would tell them that they should have kavana when they daven Vahu Rachum on Monday and Thursday. That Vahu Rachum is a very, very powerful tefillah and they should have intense kavanah when they say V'hu Rachum on Monday and Thursday. I also remember many, many years ago when certain organizations wanted to make like a takana because of tsaras that were happening in Eretz Yisrael. They wanted to make a new takana that a certain amount of tehillim should be said after davening b'tzibur every day. And they came to Reb David, and Reb David said there's no need for it. What they should do instead is they should use the existing takanas that we have, and they should make a takana that everybody should be mechazek in the saying of V'hu Rachum on Monday and Thursday, and also people shouldn't be in a rush to see what tricks they could pull out of their hat to try to avoid the long tachlon and try to make that there shouldn't be any tachlon on a Monday and Thursday. Reb David said the Tefillah of V'hu Rachum is such a chashuv Tefillah that we should make sure that we should say it with intense kavanah. Okay. So that was Mishnah Berurah's Cotton Bays. Let's go to Mishnah Berurah's Cotton Gimel. The Mechaber said that V'hu Rachum should be said standing, and if somebody says it not standing, Nikra Pirates Geder. Yesh Aimrim, the Chavetz Chaim says, there are those that say, Dali Mikri Pirates Geder, Ela Im Lo Yamore Klal. This that somebody is called a Pirates Geder is not if he says V'hu Rachum, but he doesn't say it standing. It's if you don't say V'hu Rachum at all. That's who's called a Pirates Geder. Avalam Amaroi Shaloi Ba'mida Lo Yava B'Klal Pirates Geder. Aiskan Dalad La'amroi Ma'umid. The Ramah said, indeed, it is our minhag to say it standing. V'chein kelar chapayim she'omer machar chatzi kaddish tzarich lomer gamken ma'umid. The little short little paragraph of kelar chapayim that we say before taking out the Sefer Torah should also be said standing. Mimnei sheyesh by chatanu, because it has a little aspect of vidoi in it. We say chatanu. Uvidoi tzarich lomer ma'umid. Ois cotton hay here on Tezayin Amad Aleph Balachash. The Ramah disagreed with the Mechaber. The Mechaber said V'hu Rachum should be said out loud, and the Ramah said that we say it Balachash, we say it silently. Says the Mishnah Berurah, K'moi b'tfilah shmona esrei she'omer moisai Balachash. The reason why the Ramah says to say it quietly is because of its similarity to Shmona Esrei, which of course is said silently. What's the similarity to Shmona Esrei? The similarity is that each of the three sections of V'hu Rachum, that these Zikanim, aka Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi, each section of V'hu Rachum that they composed contained Hashem's name 18 times, connected the 18 brachas of Shemona Esrei. So it's a little bit like an extension of our Tefillah of Shemona Esrei. V'tam de'er rishona, as far as the Mechaber's rationale of why V'hu Rachum should be said out loud, that would be kidei la'or hakavana, to arouse a person's kavana. When, it's much easier to drift off and to daydream if you're davening silently than it is if you're davening out loud and saying the words out loud. V'nara naharu pashte b'inyan zeh. Chavetz Chaim is machriya. Interestingly enough, you would think he would just go with the Ramah, but that's not what the Chavetz Chaim does here. Chavetz Chaim says over here, nara naru pashte b'inyan zeh, that you could go either way. Yesharim, there are those that say that kishabesayim V'hu Rachum kaidem hashliach tzibur. What happens if you finish V'hu Rachum before the Chazan finishes V'hu Rachum? Yamtin im Rachum v'chanon ala shliach tzibur v'noifel imoy. We know that in Nusach Ashkenaz, and that would be what the Chavetz Chaim is referring to, that the Nefilas Apayim is after V'hu Rachum. Nusach Sfard says, does Nefilas Apayim before V'hu Rachum? But in the minhag of Nusach Ashkenaz, where you do Nefilas Apayim after V'hu Rachum, what happens if you finish V'hu Rachum and you're already up to Nefilas Apayim, but the Tzibur and the Chazan are not? Says the Mishnah Berurah, there's a Yesh Oimrim that the Kishemisayim V'hu Rachum Kodesh Shliach Tzibur Yamtin in Rachum v'chanon ala Shliach Tzibur v'noifel imoy. You should wait for the Chazan and for the Tzibur, and you should do Nefilas Apayim everybody together as a Tzibur. The Kosa b'Shari Tshuva, the Shari Tshuva writes, Toha'idna nowadays, ein roiv tzibur mantinen ala shliach tzibur. That does not seem to be the minhag. The tzibur does not wait for the shliach tzibur. V'chol echad noifel alapav b'shosh gomer. Everybody does the Nefilas Apayim when they finish V'hu Rachum ayin sham. Now, the rationale in each direction would seem to be, we learned that really you're not supposed to have a hefsek between davening and the Nefilas Apayim. Right? We learned how Berchus Kriyishma is our tefillah b'yeshiva, sitting down. Shemona Esrei is our tefillah ba'amida, davening standing up. Nefilos Apayim is our tefillah b'nefilos Apayim, because we want to daven in all three ways that Moshe Rabbeinu davened. And we find in the Psukim that Moshe Rabbeinu davened sitting, standing, and b'nefilos Apayim. But we learned that because of this, nefilos Apayim is an extension of tefillah. So that's why Nefilos Apayim is supposed to follow right on the heels of Shemona Esrei. Even the fact that Nusach Ashkenaz interposes between Shemona Esrei and Nefilos Apayim with VHU Rachom was a chiddush. But now, if you finished VHU Rachom, what, you should just sit around and wait? No, go straight to VHU Rachom. So that would be the rationale why not to wait for the tzibur. The rationale to wait for the tzibur would be because we always want that the davening should be done together as a tzibur. Okay, Ois Katan Vav, we said that this is the minhag on Sheni v'Chamishi because they are Yemei Ratzon. Now, what makes Monday and Thursday Yemei Ratzon? Why is it that those are days when it's easier to find favor with the Rabbeinu Shalom? Says the Chavetz Chaim, She'arba'im Yom Shel Kabbalas Luchais Ha'achraynos Shehayu Yemei Ratzon. We know that there were 40 days that Moshe Rabbeinu was up on Har Sinai getting the second luchos. Those were Yemei Ratzon, right? Moshe Rabbeinu spent 40 days on Har Sinai, and he came down with the luchos rishonos and found that Klal Yisrael had made the egel. Then Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchos, he went back up to Har Sinai, and he spent 40 days being mispal to the Rabbeinu Shalom that the Rabbeinu Shalom should spare Klal Yisrael. Then the Rabbeinu Shalom said, Salachti kidvarecha, the Rabbeinu Shalom Baruch Hashem forgave us. Then Moshe Rabbeinu went back up for a third set of 40 days to be Makabel the Luchai Shniyos. Now that third set of 40 days was Yemei Ratzon. That was after the Rabbeinu Shalom already said Salachti kidvarecha, and the Rabbeinu Shalom was preparing to give us the Luchai Shniyos. Those were Yemei Ratzon. Now what does that have to do with Monday and Thursday? So says the Chavetz Chaim, Allah Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Shalom b'yom Chamishi v'yarad b'yom Sheni. For those 40 days, Moshe Rabbeinu went up on a Thursday and he came back down on a Monday. So you find that because he went up to Har Sinai on a Monday for the Yemei Ratzon, and he finished the Yemei Ratzon and came down on a Monday, so that means that Monday and Thursday are Yemei Ratzon. That's why the Ramah says that's why there's a minhag his anois behem to fast on Monday and Thursday. I'll come on b'seif Siman Tov Kov Pei Mashinipnu Sham b'Mishnah Berurah where we spoke about Hilchos Tainus. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The source of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe should send Yeshua's the first panos and shtuchim to all those in need, and we should be zeicher to see the BS Tzedek b'mehera v'yameinu. Amen. Be well.